Ava had never questioned where she came from. She had always believed the story her parents told her, that she was adopted, that her biological mother couldn't take care of her, that she had been chosen. But one ordinary morning, while flipping through a newspaper at the kitchen table, she saw a photo of a missing child. A little girl with wide brown eyes and dimples. A little girl who had been kidnapped 10 years ago. A little girl who looked exactly like her. Ava Johnson had never questioned where she came from. She had grown up in a loving home in the quiet suburbs of Chicago with her parents, Mark and Lisa Johnson. They were the kind of parents who always showed up at school events, at soccer games, at parent-teacher conferences. They helped her with homework, planned family vacations, and made sure she knew she was loved. From the time she was old enough to understand, they had told her she was adopted. It was never a secret, never something she had to wonder about. Lisa had explained it to her when she was little, saying that some babies came from their mother's tummy, but Ava had come from their hearts. She had never felt different. Being black in a white family was just a fact, not something that made her question who she was. Her parents had always tried to make sure she knew about her heritage. They bought her books with black heroines, took her to events where she could see people who looked like her, and even found a hairdresser who specialized in black hair care when she was younger. She never felt like an outsider. This was her family, and that was all that mattered. The day everything changed started out like any other. She was sitting at the kitchen table, working on a history assignment while her father read the newspaper. Her mother was by the stove, humming softly as she flipped pancakes. The smell of maple syrup and butter filled the air. Ava tapped her pencil against the table as she read about the civil rights movement, trying to focus on writing her essay, but her eyes drifted to the newspaper her father had placed beside her book. She wasn't the type to read the news. Most of the time, it was boring stories about politics or things that didn't matter to her. But for some reason, her eyes caught on a headline near the bottom of the page. It wasn't big or flashy. It wasn't the kind of article that would normally grab someone's attention. Girl abducted 10 years ago still not found. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure why. There was no reason for those words to send a chill down her spine. But something made her reach for the newspaper, pulling it closer. She skimmed the first few lines. It was a follow-up on an old case about a missing child named Maya Walker. The article explained how she had been taken from a park in Atlanta when she was 3 years old. Her mother had looked away for just a moment, and when she turned back, Maya was gone. Security footage had captured a woman leading the child away, but the quality was poor, and no one had been able to identify the kidnapper. The case had gone cold. Ava's eyes moved to the photo next to the article. It was a picture of a toddler, her dark brown eyes wide, a small stuffed bear clutched in her arms. Ava's breath caught in her throat. She had seen that face before. It was her own. She pushed back from the table so quickly that her chair scraped against the floor. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She wanted to look away, to tell herself it was just a coincidence, but she couldn't. She reached out and touched the edge of the photo with trembling fingers. The little girl in the picture was wearing a pink dress, her hair styled in tiny braids. Ava didn't remember much from when she was little, but she had a hazy memory of wearing a dress like that. And she remembered that stuffed bear. She had one just like it when she was little. But she had lost it years ago. Ava? Her mother's voice pulled her back to the present. What's wrong? Ava didn't know how to answer. Her father set down his coffee cup and leaned forward, concern written all over his face. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she lifted the newspaper and pointed at the picture. Who is this? Lisa wiped her hands on a towel and walked over. She glanced at the article, then at Ava, her smile faltering. Honey, why are you looking at that? Ava's fingers tightened around the paper. Because she looks exactly like me. Mark and Lisa exchanged a quick glance, one that made Ava's stomach twist. Her mother's voice was too soft when she spoke. Ava, I think you're imagining things. That's just a picture of a little girl. No, Ava interrupted. This isn't just a little girl. This girl was kidnapped. She was 3 years old. That's how old I was when you adopted me. Her parents went silent. Ava's pulse pounded as she searched their faces. She didn't know what she was expecting them to say. She wanted them to laugh, to tell her it was ridiculous. She wanted them to say she was wrong. But they didn't. And that silence told her everything. The silence stretched across the kitchen, thick and heavy, pressing against Ava's chest. She waited for her parents to say something, anything, that would make this all make sense. But neither of them spoke. Lisa's hands were trembling slightly as she wiped them on a dish towel, her lips parted as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Mark exhaled slowly, rubbing his forehead as he stared down at the table. Ava's heartbeat pounded in her ears. She felt dizzy, like the ground beneath her feet had shifted. This wasn't how they were supposed to react. If this was just some weird coincidence, if she was wrong, they would have laughed. They would have told her she was being ridiculous and that, of course, she wasn't some kidnapped child from a newspaper article. But they didn't. Lisa finally spoke, her voice quiet but strained. Ava, sweetheart, I think you need to calm down. Ava slammed the newspaper onto the table. No! Don't do that! Don't talk to me like I'm overreacting. Just tell me the truth. Mark looked up then, his expression exhausted. We raised you, Ava. We love you. That's the truth. That's not what I asked. Her voice shook, but she didn't care. Her hands curled into fists on the table. Did you steal me? Lisa flinched as if she had been struck. No. Ava, we would never. Then where did I come from? Another long pause. Mark and Lisa exchanged another glance, one of those silent conversations parents have when they don't know how to explain something to their child. Ava had seen them do it before, but this time it wasn't about some silly household rule or school decision. This time, it was about her. Lisa sat down across from her, her hands folded tightly in front of her. We didn't steal you, she said slowly, choosing each word carefully. We were told that your biological mother couldn't take care of you. That you had no family. That you needed a home. Ava's stomach twisted. Who told you that? Lisa swallowed hard. A woman. She said she worked with children, that she found homes for babies who needed them. Ava stared at her, the words from the article flashing in her mind. Security footage had captured a woman leading the child away. Something inside her cracked. You're saying you bought me from a stranger? Lisa's face crumpled. We didn't know, Ava. We didn't know she was lying. Ava felt sick. Her hands shook as she pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. She wanted to run, to get out of that house, to breathe air that wasn't so thick with lies. Mark reached for her arm. Ava, please. She jerked away from him. Don't touch me. Lisa started crying. We thought we were doing the right thing. We thought you needed us. Ava's breath came in short gasps. The walls of the kitchen felt like they were closing in. Her whole life, everything was built on a lie. I need to go, she whispered, turning on her heel. Ava, wait. But she didn't. She grabbed her phone, her coat, and bolted out the door. She ran down the street, her heart racing, her legs shaking beneath her. She had no idea where she was going. She just knew she couldn't stay. Ava didn't stop running until her legs burned, and her breath came in sharp gasps. The cold air stung her cheeks as she slowed down, clutching her phone tightly in her trembling hands. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't have a plan. She just knew she couldn't stay in that house, in that kitchen, with the people who had lied to her for her entire life. She found herself near the small park where she used to play when she was younger. It was nearly empty, just a few kids on the swings and a couple walking their dog. She sank onto a bench, her body still shaking, her mind racing. Her whole life had been a lie. Mark and Lisa had raised her, loved her, given her everything. But they weren't her parents. They had never been. They had bought her. Maybe they hadn't known the truth at the time, but it didn't change the fact that she had been stolen. That somewhere out there, someone had been looking for her. She unlocked her phone with shaky fingers. The article. She had taken a picture of it. She opened the photo and stared at the image of the little girl, the girl who was supposed to be her. Maya Walker. Ava. Maya. The name didn't feel real, but neither did anything else right now. Her eyes moved to the contact information listed at the bottom of the article. There was a hotline number for missing persons and a name, Detective Sarah Whitmore, the officer still assigned to the case. Ava's heart pounded as she hesitated, her thumb hovering over the number. She could end this right now. She could call, tell them everything, and find out once and for all who she really was. But what if she was wrong? What if this was all just a horrible misunderstanding? No. She knew it wasn't. Her finger pressed the call button before she could change her mind. It rang once. Twice. Then a voice answered. Detective Whitmore speaking. Ava's mouth went dry. She opened her lips, but nothing came out. Hello, the woman's voice was firm but not unkind. Is someone there? Ava forced herself to speak. I think, she swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. I think I'm the girl from the article. The one who was taken. There was silence. Then the detective's tone shifted. Can you tell me your name? Ava hesitated. I don't know. She could hear papers shuffling in the background. Where are you right now? Ava glanced around, realizing how alone she was. Fear crept into her chest. I'm at a park. Near my house, she said quietly. Are you safe? I don't know. The detective's voice softened. Can you stay where you are? I can send someone to meet you. We can talk. Ava gripped her phone tighter. I don't want to go home. You don't have to. Just stay put, okay? Ava nodded before realizing the detective couldn't see her. Okay. I'm going to send an officer your way. What are you wearing so they can find you? Ava looked down at herself. A gray hoodie. Jeans. Good. Just sit tight. You're not alone in this, okay? Ava felt tears burn her eyes, but she blinked them back. Okay. She ended the call and wrapped her arms around herself. For the first time in her life, she didn't know who she was. But she was about to find out. Ava sat on the cold metal bench, hugging her arms around herself as she waited. The wind had picked up, rustling the leaves and sending a chill down her spine. She hadn't thought to grab a warmer coat when she ran out of the house. At the time, she had only been focused on getting away. Now, she sat there, exposed, vulnerable, waiting for something, anything to make sense again. Her mind raced, replaying the conversation with Detective Whitmore over and over. She had actually done it. She had called. She had said the words out loud, I think I'm the girl from the article. Saying it had made it real. She stared at the screen of her phone, debating whether to check her messages. There were probably dozens from her parents. Not my parents, the thought made her stomach twist. She wasn't ready to see what they had to say, so she turned the screen off and shoved the phone into her hoodie pocket. A few minutes later, a black and white police car pulled up to the curb. Her chest tightened as she saw an officer step out. He was tall, with broad shoulders, wearing a standard uniform with a badge on his chest. He looked around, scanning the area before spotting her. Ava's throat felt dry as he approached. Are you Ava Johnson? He asked, his voice calm but firm. She hesitated before nodding. I'm Officer Davis. Detective Whitmore sent me to check on you. He glanced at the empty space beside her on the bench. Mind if I sit? She shook her head. He sat down, resting his elbows on his knees. For a moment, he didn't say anything, just letting the silence settle between them. Detective Whitmore told me you called about a missing person case, he finally said. Ava swallowed hard. Yeah. Do you want to tell me what's going on? She looked down at her hands, picking at a loose thread on her hoodie sleeve. I don't know where to start. How about the beginning? Ava exhaled slowly. I always thought I was adopted. My parents, Mark and Lisa, they told me that my birth mother couldn't take care of me, so they took me in. Officer Davis nodded, listening. But today, I saw an article in the newspaper about a girl who was kidnapped 10 years ago. She paused, her voice unsteady. She looks exactly like me. Davis studied her carefully. And that made you suspicious? She let out a shaky breath. At first, I thought it was just a weird coincidence. But when I asked my parents about it, they got weird. And then I looked at my documents. There aren't any real adoption papers. Nothing legal. Davis nodded, his expression unreadable. And when you confronted them? They said they didn't know. Ava's voice cracked. They said they thought I was given to them legally, but if that were true, why wouldn't there be any records? Why wouldn't they have told me everything? Davis rubbed his chin, thinking. Did they ever mention who they got you from? Ava hesitated. My mom said it was a woman who told them my biological mother didn't want me. Did they give you a name? She shook her head. No. Just that she worked with kids. Davis nodded again, his face serious. Ava, I need you to understand something. If what you're saying is true, then this is a serious situation. We're going to have to investigate. That means talking to your parents, looking into your past, and checking the missing persons database. Ava's stomach twisted. What happens if I really am her? Davis was quiet for a moment. Then he said, then we'll have to find your biological family. Ava's breath hitched. The idea of another family, people she had never met but who had once known her, felt too big, too overwhelming. Can I go back home? She asked, even though she wasn't sure she wanted to. Davis sighed. That depends. Right now, we need to make sure you're safe. Until we know the full truth, we might need to place you somewhere else temporarily. Her chest tightened. You mean foster care? Maybe. Or with a relative, if we find one. Ava shook her head. I don't know any relatives. You might, Davis said gently. You just don't remember them. She swallowed hard, feeling like her whole world had been ripped away in a single afternoon. She had spent 12 years believing she knew who she was, where she belonged. And now, she didn't know anything at all. Come on, Davis said, standing. Let's get you somewhere safe. Detective Whitmore will meet us there, and we'll figure this out together. Ava hesitated before getting up. She took one last look at the park, the place that had always felt familiar, safe. But not anymore. Nothing felt safe now. She followed Davis to the police car, her legs heavy, her heart pounding. She didn't know what was waiting for her on the other side of this. But she knew there was no turning back. Ava sat in the back of the police car, staring out the window as Officer Davis drove. The city lights blurred past her, glowing in the fading daylight. She barely noticed where they were going. Her mind was still stuck in the moment when she had confronted Mark and Lisa, in the way their faces had changed, in the truth that had shattered everything she thought she knew. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the shaking. She had never been in a police car before. It wasn't like the movies. There was no cage separating her from the front seat, no loud sirens. Just the quiet hum of the engine and the weight of everything pressing down on her. Davis had told her they were taking her somewhere safe. He hadn't said where, exactly, and she hadn't asked. She didn't know if she wanted to know. All she knew was that she couldn't go home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. After what felt like forever, the car pulled into a parking lot outside a small brick building. A sign near the entrance read Child Protective Services. Ava's stomach twisted. Davis turned to look at her. "Come on. Let's go inside." Ava hesitated before pushing open the car door. The cold air hit her as she stepped out. The building looked ordinary, almost like an office. But she knew what it meant. Kids who didn't have anywhere else to go came here. Kids who didn't have families. She followed Davis inside, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. The lobby was quiet, the walls painted a dull beige. A few plastic chairs lined the walls, and a woman sat behind a desk, typing something on a computer. She looked up when they walked in. "Detective Whitmore is already here," she said to Davis. "She's waiting in room 3. Ava's heart pounded. She hadn't thought about what would happen next. She had called the police, but now that she was actually here, sitting down with detectives, about to dig into the truth, she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Davis gestured for her to follow him down a hallway. The carpet was old, the walls covered with framed photos of smiling families. Each one made Ava's chest ache. They stopped outside a door, and Davis knocked before opening it. Inside, a woman sat at a round table, flipping through a file. She looked up as they entered. She had dark hair pulled into a bun, sharp eyes, and a calm, serious expression. "You must be Ava," she said, closing the file. "I'm Detective Whitmore." Ava nodded, stepping inside. The room was small, with nothing but the table and a few chairs. It smelled like coffee and paper. Davis pulled out a chair. "Sit," he said gently. Ava sat, her hands still clenched in her lap. Whitmore studied her for a moment. "I know this is a lot to take in. You did the right thing by calling." Ava wasn't sure if that was true. Everything still felt wrong. Whitmore opened the file again. "I've reviewed the missing persons report from 10 years ago. Maya Walker was 3 years old when she disappeared from a park in Atlanta. Her mother, Jenna Walker, has never stopped looking for her." Ava swallowed hard. "What if it's not me?" Whitmore looked at her carefully. "Do you want it to be?" Ava didn't know how to answer that. If it wasn't her, it meant she had torn her family apart for nothing. If it was her, it meant her whole life had been built on a lie. Whitmore slid a photograph across the table. "This is Jenna Walker. Your potential biological mother." Ava hesitated before picking it up. The woman in the picture had warm brown eyes, just like hers. She was smiling, but there was something sad in her face, as if she had been holding on to pain for a long time. Ava's throat tightened. "She looks familiar." Whitmore nodded. "That's normal. Even if you don't remember her, your brain might recognize something about her. A voice, a face, even a scent can trigger memories." Ava set the photo down. "What happens now?" Whitmore folded her hands on the table. "We need to confirm everything before we make any moves. We'll have to talk to Mark and Lisa, investigate how you ended up with them. We'll also contact Jenna Walker and let her know we may have found her daughter." Ava's hands started shaking again. "And then what?" Whitmore sighed. "That depends. If the DNA confirms you're Maya Walker, you'll have a choice to make. You can reconnect with your biological family. You can figure out what that means for you." Ava's stomach twisted. "And Mark and Lisa?" "That's more complicated," Whitmore admitted. "If they truly didn't know, they may not face charges. But if we find out they knew more than they told you, that's a different story." Ava stared down at the table. She didn't know what she wanted anymore. She had spent 12 years believing she belonged in one family, and now she was being told she might belong to another. Whitmore's voice softened. "I know this is overwhelming. But you don't have to go through it alone. We'll help you figure this out, one step at a time." Ava took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She wasn't sure she was ready for the truth. But she knew there was no turning back now. Ava sat in the small interview room, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She had expected this moment to feel more like an answer, like a weight lifting off her shoulders. Instead, it felt heavier, like she had cracked open something far bigger than she was ready to handle. The photo of Jenna Walker still lay on the table in front of her. She couldn't stop looking at it. There was something in the woman's eyes, something deep and familiar, but also distant. Detective Whitmore watched her carefully. "I know this is a lot to process. You don't have to decide anything right now." Ava nodded, but she wasn't sure what that even meant. How could she just sit here and do nothing? Somewhere out there, a woman had been searching for her for 10 years. A woman who might be her real mother. A woman who had lost her child and never stopped hoping she would come back. Her hands trembled as she reached for the photograph again. "What happens if she really is my mom?" Whitmore leaned forward slightly. "If the DNA test confirms it, legally, you're Maya Walker. That means your biological mother has rights. But we're not just going to throw you into a new life overnight. If Jenna Walker is your mother, we'll take it step by step. You'll have time to get to know her, to decide what you want." Ava swallowed hard. "And Mark and Lisa?" Whitmore hesitated. "We're going to talk to them. We need to understand how they got you, what they knew, and whether they were really as unaware as they claim." Ava shifted in her seat, guilt creeping up her spine. As much as she was furious with them for lying to her, she still couldn't imagine them as criminals. They had loved her. They had raised her. She had called them mom and dad for as long as she could remember. But what if they had known? What if they had chosen to keep her even after realizing she wasn't theirs? Whitmore's voice softened. "I know you love them, Ava. No one expects you to just erase that. But if they were involved in something illegal, they have to be held accountable." Ava's stomach twisted. "Are they going to be arrested?" "That depends on what we find." The words settled into Ava's chest like a stone. There was a knock at the door, and Officer Davis stepped inside. "We've got Mark and Lisa in an interview room. They're asking for Ava." Ava's pulse spiked. She wasn't ready to see them. She didn't even know what she would say. Whitmore looked at her. "Do you want to talk to them?" Ava hesitated, then nodded slowly. She needed to hear what they had to say. Whitmore stood and motioned for her to follow. They walked down the hallway, the sound of their footsteps echoing in Ava's ears. Every step felt heavier. When they reached the interview room, Whitmore opened the door, and Ava stepped inside. Mark and Lisa sat at the metal table, looking more exhausted than she had ever seen them. Lisa's eyes were red and puffy, as if she had been crying. Mark looked pale, his jaw tight. The moment they saw her, Lisa reached out instinctively, but Ava took a step back. "Ava," Lisa said, her voice breaking. "Baby, we are so sorry." Ava swallowed hard. "Tell me the truth. All of it." Mark rubbed his face. "We never meant to lie to you. We thought we were doing the right thing. By taking someone else's child?" Ava's voice shook with anger. Lisa let out a sob. "We didn't know. We swear, Ava. We thought we were adopting you. We were told your mother didn't want you." Ava's chest tightened. "Who told you that?" Lisa hesitated before whispering, "A woman named Carol." Whitmore, who stood in the doorway, immediately perked up. "Carol who?" Mark shook his head. "We don't know her last name. We never questioned it. She told us that she worked with children who needed homes, but that some of them couldn't go through the system for legal reasons." Ava's hands clenched into fists. "And you believe that?" Lisa's shoulders shook. "We were desperate. We had been trying to have a baby for years. We wanted a child so badly. And then Carol came to us and told us that there was a little girl who needed a family. She said that if we didn't take you, you would end up in the foster system. We thought we were saving you." Ava stared at them, anger and sorrow clashing inside her. "You should have asked questions. You should have made sure it was real. Mark wiped a hand down his face. We know. We know we should have. But we didn't want to lose you. Ava's throat tightened. You never thought about the fact that maybe my real mother was out there looking for me? Lisa sobbed into her hands. We were scared. Once we realized that something wasn't right, you were already our daughter. We couldn't give you up. Ava felt the room spinning. This was too much. Too many emotions, too many lies tangled with love. Whitmore finally stepped forward. We're going to investigate this Carol. If she was running illegal adoptions, we need to find her. Mark nodded slowly. We'll tell you everything we know. Lisa looked at Ava with pleading eyes. Please don't hate us. Ava wanted to scream that she did. That she hated them for lying, for stealing her from her real mother, for making her life a lie. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. She loved them. And that made this hurt even more. She turned away, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to feel about you anymore. Then she walked out, leaving them behind. Ava didn't know how long she wandered through the hallways of the police station before Detective Whitmore finally caught up to her. Her chest was tight, her hands shaking, and no matter how many deep breaths she took, she couldn't steady herself. Everything inside her felt tangled: rage, sorrow, confusion, betrayal. She didn't know what she was supposed to feel, what she was supposed to do next. Whitmore gently touched her shoulder. Ava, I know this is overwhelming. But you're not alone in this. Ava turned to her, her throat dry. I don't even know who I am anymore. Whitmore studied her carefully. You are still you. No matter where you came from. Ava looked down at the floor. If I'm Maya Walker, then what does that mean for the last 12 years of my life? For Mark and Lisa? Whitmore sighed. It means they made choices that changed your life forever. But it also means you have another family out there. A mother who never stopped looking for you. The words hit Ava like a wave. A mother who had never given up. A woman who had spent 10 years searching, wondering, waiting. And now, for the first time in her life, Ava had a chance to meet her. Her hands trembled as she whispered, Does she know yet? Whitmore nodded. We contacted her after we started the investigation. She wants to see you. Ava's breath caught. It felt too soon. Too real. She wasn't ready. Whitmore seemed to sense her hesitation. You don't have to meet her today if you're not ready. You get to decide how this happens. Ava squeezed her eyes shut. What if she doesn't like who I am? What if I don't remember her? Whitmore's voice softened. She's not expecting you to remember. She just wants to see you. To know that you're okay. Ava bit her lip, then finally nodded. Okay. Whitmore gave her a reassuring nod before leading her down the hallway. They entered a quiet office, and Ava's heart nearly stopped. A woman stood by the window, her back to the door. She was small, with curly black hair pulled into a loose bun. The second Ava stepped into the room, the woman turned. Their eyes met. For a moment, there was only silence. Ava didn't know what she had expected, but she hadn't expected this, hadn't expected the flood of emotions that crashed into her at the sight of this stranger who wasn't a stranger at all. Jenna Walker pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes instantly filling with tears. Her entire body shook as she took a shaky step forward. Maya? Ava's chest tightened. She should have said something. But she didn't know what to say. Jenna let out a soft sob, covering her mouth with her hand. Her voice broke. I thought I'd never see you again. Ava felt something deep inside her crack. She had spent the last few days feeling lost, unsure of where she belonged. But now, standing in front of this woman, this mother who had been searching for her, it hit her all at once. She had a home before she even knew what home was. Jenna took another small step forward, as if afraid Ava might disappear. I don't want to scare you, she whispered. You don't have to say anything. I just needed to see you. Ava's throat was too tight to speak. Jenna smiled through her tears. You've grown so much. You're so beautiful. Ava swallowed hard. You never stopped looking for me? Jenna shook her head, another tear slipping down her cheek. Never. Not for a single second. Ava's hands curled into fists at her sides. They told me I was adopted. That my real mother didn't want me. Jenna let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. That's not true. That was never true. Her voice cracked. I loved you from the moment you were born. Ava felt the tears burning in her own eyes. Then why don't I remember you? Jenna let out a small, broken laugh. You were only 3, baby. But it's okay. I remember you. Ava pressed a hand to her chest, trying to breathe through the storm of emotions. I don't know what to do. Jenna took another hesitant step forward. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I'll wait as long as it takes. Ava studied her face, the warmth in her eyes, the raw love written in every trembling expression. After a long moment, she finally whispered, Can I hug you? Jenna let out a small, choked sob. Of course you can. Ava took a shaky step forward, then another, and before she could second-guess herself, she walked straight into her mother's waiting arms. Jenna held her like she never wanted to let go. Ava felt her body shake with silent sobs, felt the warmth of a love she had never known but somehow recognized deep in her bones. For the first time since she had seen that newspaper article, she didn't feel lost. She didn't know what came next. But she knew one thing for sure. She had found where she came from. Ava had never felt anything like the hug Jenna gave her. It wasn't just warmth. It wasn't just comfort. It was something deeper, something that made her feel like a part of her had finally clicked into place. She had spent her entire life believing that her story started with Mark and Lisa, but now she realized that it had started long before them. It had started in the arms of this woman, the mother who had never given up on her. They stood there for what felt like forever, Jenna's arms wrapped tightly around her, as if afraid she might disappear again. Ava wasn't sure how long they stayed like that, but eventually, Jenna pulled back just enough to look at her, brushing Ava's curls back the way a mother does without even thinking. I don't want to overwhelm you, Jenna said softly. But there's so much I want to tell you. Ava nodded, her chest still tight with emotions she couldn't fully understand. I want to know everything. They sat down together, and for the first time, Ava listened as Jenna told her about the life she had before she was taken. She learned that she had been a happy, curious child who loved to sing and dance. That she had a favorite blue blanket she carried everywhere. That she used to run into her mother's arms every night before bed, giggling as Jenna spun her in circles. Ava tried to reach for those memories, but they were buried too deep. Still, something about hearing them made her feel safe. Even if she didn't remember, even if she couldn't picture it in her mind, she believed it. Jenna pulled out a small photo from her purse, one that was creased and worn from being held too many times. It was a picture of them together, Jenna, younger and smiling, holding a toddler in her arms. The little girl had chubby cheeks and wide brown eyes, a toothy grin stretching across her face. That's you, Jenna whispered. Ava traced a finger over the image, her heart aching at the sight. I don't look any different. Jenna let out a soft laugh. You do. But I would know you anywhere. Ava swallowed hard. What happens now? Jenna's smile faltered slightly, and she glanced at Detective Whitmore, who had been standing quietly in the background, giving them space. We still have to go through the process, Whitmore said. Legally confirming everything, figuring out custody, making sure you have time to adjust. Ava looked down at her hands. And Mark and Lisa? Jenna took a slow breath. That's up to you, sweetheart. Ava knew that they had lied to her, but she also knew they had raised her. They had been there for her in ways Jenna couldn't be, not because she didn't want to be, but because she hadn't had a choice. The truth was painful, but it wasn't black and white. I don't know what I want, Ava admitted. Jenna nodded. You don't have to figure it out all at once. I'm not here to take you away from the life you've known. I just want to be in your life again, however you'll have me. Ava felt her throat tighten. I want that too. Jenna reached across the table and took her hand. Then we'll take it one step at a time. Ava squeezed her fingers. She still had so many questions, still felt like she was standing on unsteady ground. But for the first time in days, she didn't feel completely lost. She didn't know what her future looked like, but she knew she had found a piece of herself she didn't even realize was missing. And that was enough to start with. The ending of Ava's story isn't about choosing one family over another. It's about discovering the truth and figuring out where she belongs in a life that was never truly her own. The moment she saw that newspaper article, her entire world shattered, but in the wreckage, she found something even more important: answers. What makes this story powerful isn't just the shocking revelation of her past, but the complexity of what follows. The people who raised her were not villains, but they were part of a painful lie. The mother who lost her never gave up, but that doesn't mean their relationship will instantly return to what it was. There is no perfect resolution, no easy way to rewrite the past. But what makes this a hopeful ending is that Ava now has something she didn't before: a choice. A chance to decide who she wants to be, where she wants to go, and how to move forward with both the family she lost and the one she thought she knew. The road ahead won't be simple, but it will be hers, and after everything, that's what truly matters.